Hi everyone and welcome back to my Excel Power Query series. In my previous videos, we explored the basics of Power Query and how to combine data using merge and append functions. Today, we are diving deeper into the world of data transformation as we focus on two features of Power Query, pivoting and unpivoting columns. So, what is pivoting? Pivoting is a useful data transformation technique that allows us to convert unique rows values into separate columns. It's like rotating our data to a new perspective, providing more structured view of the information. In my example, we have sales data with columns representing managers, different months, and the corresponding amounts of sales. By pivoting month column, we can simply convert it into separated columns where each column represents a specific month sales figure. To perform the pivot transformation, we need to indicate two key columns. One column with names for our future separated columns, in this case the months, and another column with values, the sales amounts. Let's illustrate this example in practice. So, in Excel Power Query, we have the same dataset with columns Manager, Sales, and Month. Our goal is to convert the month column into separate columns. To achieve this, I select the column that I want to convert and go to Transform tab and click Pivot Column. In a dialog box that appears, we need to choose a column with values. In my example, the column with values is Sales. So I select Sales. I also go to Advanced option and check Aggregate Value function, which means how you want to show your result. For example, selecting the Sum function will calculate the total sales for each month, and this is the result that we want to achieve. But pay attention, to perform Sum function, the Values column, in my example, the Sales column, must have a numeric data type. If the values column has a different data type, such as text, summing the values won't be possible. We will consider this example in practice in this video. There are also other available aggregations in Excel Power Query. The count function counts the number of rows within each pivot columns. You can choose if you want to count blank rows or not. The minimum function returns the minimum value, and the maximum function returns maximum value. The median function calculates the median value, and average calculates the average arithmetic value. And finally, there is also don't aggregate function, and we will consider this function in the following example. So now I select Sum function and click OK. And Power Query summarized sales for each month and displayed this month in a separate columns. Now let's consider an example where you selected a value column that cannot be aggregated. In the following example, there is the same table with columns Manager, Month, but instead of column Sales, there is a column with Region, and this column has text data type. So let's try to pivot Month column. I go to Transform tab and click Pivot column. Now I need to select Values column, which is Region, and in Advanced option, I'm going to select Don't Aggregate. And here is how Don't Aggregate option looks like in practice. Just compare these two representations of the data. So, Don't Aggregate option allows us to retain the detailed information while organizing it into a more structured view. But pay attention that don't aggregate operation only expects a single value for the combination of value and name columns. I'll try to demonstrate what I mean. There is another table with the same columns, but one of the managers, Alexander, worked for 2 regions in January. Let's pivot month column again. Transform, pivot column, region, don't aggregate operation. So we received the error message. There were too many elements in the enumeration to complete the operation, which means that the combination of month and region was not unique. So Power Query couldn't proceed don't aggregate operation correctly. Let's move on to a more complicated example, and I'm going to demonstrate one more common mistake that can occur when performing pivoting. For this example, I have a table with columns Manager, Cell Type, and Sales. Our goal is to convert cell type into separated columns. So I'm going to pivot this column. And I select Sales as values column. And now I'm going to select Sum as an aggregation option. And there is no such option. Why? Because, as I mentioned before, to perform sum operation, the values column must have a numeric data type, and our column has text data type. And I can't change it to numbers at this moment because there are non-numeric characters as dollars and comma. So, as a first step, we need to get rid of these characters. To perform this, I'll use a replace values function. So I'm going to replace dollar with an empty row to remove dollar sign. Okay. And now I'm going to repeat replace values to remove commas. Okay. In order to perform sum aggregations, don't forget to change the column's data type to numbers. And now we can successfully proceed with pivoting. Pivot column, sales, sum. Okay, that's it. Power Query summarized sales for each cell type, lease, and sell, and displayed these types in the separate columns. Now let's explore unpivoting. Unpivoting is the opposite of pivoting. It allows us to transform columns back into rows, like consolidating multiple columns into a standard two-column layout, attribute, and value. This technique is beneficial when we want to convert data from a wide format to a long format. Let's work with a different data set to demonstrate the power of unpivoting. As I mentioned before, unpivoting is the opposite of pivoting. So, if I need to unpivot these two columns, I need to select them using Control button, and I go to Transform tab and click Unpivot columns. And now we have two columns, attribute with months and value with sales. I'm just going to rename them to ensure clarity and ease of understanding. Sales. And that's it. Now we can use this information for further analysis. So we've explored two essential data transformation techniques in Excel Power Query, pivoting and unpivoting columns. I encourage you to experiment with your own data sets in Excel Power Query. Remember, like all tools, the more you practice, the more proficient you'll become. Happy querying and see you in the next video.